Hello, everyone. I am Mike Bedard, and I'm joined today by some really fantastic people who have a great show on Tubi, and you can also rent and buy it on Amazon Prime Video. It's called Upside Brown. I'm here with Rahul Dhiman and Yash Hatkar. How are you both doing today?
Pretty
Good.
good. Thanks
How
for
are
having
you?
us, Mike. It's awesome.
So, to kick things off, can you walk us through the genesis of Upside Brown? How did this TV show come to fruition?
Yeah, go ahead, roll.
For sure. The genesis of this really happened during the COVID times, actually. So Yash and my background was not 100% in filmmaking professionally. I was on the engineering side. Yash was, in the on the business sales type of realm. And but the one thing we shared is both like a love for filmmaking and also like, South Asian and Hollywood type of films and TV shows. And we kind of came together on a lot of Zoom calls and we're like, let's try to come up with something unique that, one of these communities haven't really had. And so we had a lot of Zoom calls during COVID, and eventually Yash, through a family friend, came up with an idea like, what if we did an Indian American sitcom? And, the idea when he said that for me was pretty profound because when I was thinking of it, there really wasn't anything like that. Nothing like yeah, no, there's no Indian American sitcom. When you say that, you don't there's no image that really pops into your head. Um, and so that was really when we literally started writing the script, honestly, from then. And we did a very bootstrap pilot early on, a year after that, raised some funds, and then we wrote 9 episodes. And then many years later, after production, a lot of post production, we finished the show independently.
That's great. Were there any, I guess working as an independent production inherently comes with some hurdles to come over. Was there any particular challenges you remember or something where you had to get pretty creative to overcome something during the production or post-production process?
Oh, countless many. But I think it built a sort of resilience and like one thing that was really nice was that our cinematographer, he said more than anything, like he wants it to be a learning experience and a vibe check. As long as the vibe check is good and the group is on the same page about what they want, we were confident that we would get it done. And I think looking back, that was the most important thing because at the late hours, if someone's not getting a line at like 11:30 p.m. after you've had a 10-hour day, you need that sort of team spirit to be like, it's fine, we got this. Don't worry about the next day. Let's keep going. Or I think there are times where we were short staffed. I think our most we look back, our most intense day of production was when our sound mixer wasn't feeling well. So our boom op had to play both boom op and sound mixer on the longest day of filming and probably the most difficult day of filming. But just pulled through. We found ways to sort of meet deadlines. A lot of times the creativity would come from looking at a script and then the crew telling us like, hey, we get you got to finish, but we got to go to bed and be ready for the next day. You have 2 hours. Don't care if the scene takes 5 hours. And then Rahul and I would split it up and just be like, okay, what's the meat of this? What do we learn in any good storytelling? Cut any unnecessary exposition, get to the meat. So, like, it was a good sort of writing assignment, middle of production that allowed us to like stay creative and do stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, throughout it, I'd say the biggest one was our mom character, Shalini, the mother of main character Shweta. We had a scheduling conflict coming up with maybe a week and a half left till rehearsal began, and we didn't have a cast member for that. So we were terrified because we'd put the investment down on the Airbnb, and just through a mix of luck, connection, everything, one of our cast members, the other mom, Ria, she reached out to a friend of hers and was like, hey, there's maybe a role. Do you want to talk to these guys? And God bless that, the moment she got on the interview and did the little cold read, Rahul and I were like, you wait for a moment, went off call and we're like, yeah, she's the one. So sometimes it just works out like that, and resilience. That's really the name of the game.
You mentioned filming at an Airbnb. Much of the show, or a good amount of it, takes place in the one house. How much of that was did you have that kind of idea from the get-go, from writing the scripts of like, let's do it predominantly one location, just for the sake of simplicity, or was it kind of like, did that come later of just like it, as you said, kind of simplifying things when you need to?
Yeah, 100%. I think that really did come very strategically planned from the beginning, because this was Yash and I's first real project, and we knew we had a certain budget that we were working with, and there's also a certain tone we kind of wanted to achieve, and so we looked at all the variables that kind of go into a show and wanted to craft something that was optimized both from a budget standpoint and also fitting the vibe of the show. And just from talking to other people, we learned obviously like if you have multiple locations, that can add a lot of costs and like time as well. If you add multiple days of shoot, the budget really goes up. And so also we were like, okay, what types of TV shows and films filming style is also the most conducive for like an independent film? And we were thinking about The Office in a way and how they have a mockumentary sitcom where we can use a couple cameras at the same time. We don't have to light the scene as crazily as you need, and you can kind of get both characters in the scene at the same time, and that would save a lot of time as well. So we were like, okay, if we have just one location for the entire thing and we shoot it like The Office, that is probably the most cost and time efficient way to film the show. And so that was like before we even wrote the very first pilot in like 2019-ish time. Like that was kind of in our heads to be like, we're gonna go this way. And then I do remember someone telling us, or at least me, I don't remember who, that when you create boundaries and restrictions on yourself and to operate in a certain box, that's when your creativity is actually very challenged. Because if you have, say, like no restrictions, like, oh, I can use like anything in the world and then I can make a whole spaceship and all these things. I feel like you can get very creative with that, but in terms of executing and actually making it happen, it gets a little tough. Because then you come to realize later, like, oh, this is not feasible, that's not feasible. But if you kind of create a box where you can play within, it's kind of counterintuitive, but it actually is pretty conducive for being creative and making use of with what you got.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, the one big part about The Office or even Parks and Rec, but I think The Office especially, it works that there is one central location. So that worked in our favor. Obviously, we knew that when you're writing a story, like they got to get out of the house sometime. Otherwise, like, the staleness of being in one place all the time. But for the most part, that did work out. And the thing Rahul mentioned with time, especially, most of the time is not even the filming, it's the setting up of the lighting and the gear and all that. And then the actual camera part takes maybe like 10 minutes for them and they're like, we're ready to go. The lighting sometimes can take for one location as much as 45 minutes to an hour. So if you have to lug all that into the truck and then back, we were very lucky that with it being one location, we all actually, as a cast and crew, most of us stayed overnight for most of the duration of the filming. And that just helped because it's all there. You get up, boom, do the lighting setup, and then boom, you go.
You talked about The Office. I'm curious to hear from both of you your maybe your early comedy influences. Were there any other sitcoms? I mean, I know Upside Brown kind of has a definitely an Office vibe, sort of Modern Family type thing. Were there any other shows or movies that influenced the show, or just comedies you enjoy just on your own?
For sure. I think for me, The Office definitely was the one that influenced this the most, from a style and like tonal perspective. But I would say it wasn't even other comedy shows after The Office that really influenced it for me. For me, I grew up all very much on Bollywood and like Indian cinema and films. And that, along with my like just upbringing of being born and raised in America, I think was kind of the main thing that really drove it after The Office, because in my mind I wanted to bring certain aspects from like Indian entertainment into uh the like Indian American landscape where it could be accessible for people both in India and also for like people in America as well, and not just Indian people. Like we tried to make the show authentic to like the actual Indian American experience, which is why we had a mix of Hindi and English, and the kids not really speaking Hindi, but the parents speaking Hindi, and all those kinds of dynamics. And we got that from a lot of the. That's kind of how they do a lot of shows in films in India, and kind of trying to portray that. Tonally though, for me, it was definitely The Office that inspired this. I mean, other shows I really liked comedy wise was like Family Guy and like South Park and stuff like that, but it doesn't. Those are obviously animated comedy shows, so.
And then just to add, I think Veep and Succession for me, Veep especially given was a big like color example that we use for our colorist of like, okay, it's more professionally shot per se. It's like it looks more high class than maybe like The Office, but it still has that mockumentary feel. And then it has those drama moments too, where like when it's time to get serious, like it gets serious. And then Succession was a musical inspiration where Succession can be ridiculously funny, but oftentimes like so dramatically epic. And we wanted to be like, okay, that's life, can we have it be downright silly when it needs to be, like The Office, but can we also have it be like downright dramatic when it needs to be, like Succession?
So Upside Brown, first seasons. It's up on Tubi. Anyone can watch it free. Any progress on season two? Or are there plans for a season two in the mix, or just what are you guys working on next?
Season two is, I mean, it would be a dream. I'll be honest that between Rahul and I, like story wise, we see this going 5 seasons, and we know how the story generally ends at the end of that 5th season. So we do definitely have an end in sight and want to, we don't want to keep it going on forever. That being said, season two can only happen if we get enough eyes on season one and get this funded. I always joke, the way the networks work. It's like, guys, we get season two and we kill it. The hardest part's going to be getting season three, because if you get season three, then they're going to be like, okay, they did 3 seasons, give them a fourth. If you do the fourth, they're going to be like, just one left to end it. So really, it's that question about season two is it's the next big hurdle, but it's definitely on our minds because you look at much of the great sitcoms, none of them are like instant hits their season one, right? But they show you enough potential, and that's what we wanted to do. Show enough potential that if you give us like 10 times the resources, we would love to give you like a really, really awesome episode every single one of the season.